Any given day that you participate in the markets at large, you have to take a look at the landscape and learn to evaluate everything at your disposal. Bought city blocks for like eight
Yep.
bucks.
Yep.
That's what I'm
Wait,
waiting to
did
do. I
you just say
literally
stacking value?
stacking value. Number one thing that I value in life more than anything else is flexibility.
They eat a lot of like seed oils and stuff, which I know like Bitcoin maxis don't like, but I don't know. There's something about the stir fry and eating with chopsticks.
Yeah, it's good.
It makes me eat more slowly and smaller, and like the smaller bowls, I eat smaller portions. I've
There's
noticed.
something to that, right?
Yeah. Yo, welcome back to Value Stack Podcast. Today's guest is JP Jared. This is episode 21, which is probably the most important episode, significance-wise, for those of you who don't know, 21 million Bitcoin. But Jared's the
I
buddy.
like it.
Yeah. So this is a special one for you, man. But
Sweet.
anyway, Jared's a man of many talents. He hosts. Let's see. He's at the Stack Labs. I guess it's called Stack Labs Plus Expected Value. It's kind of undergoing a renaming. He hosts the Crypto Parabellum podcast, which is a new show that we'll get into today. He started out in commercial insurance and real estate investing, but he's been so good at trading and making macro calls that he's now doing this full time. And with respect to that, like when I'm looking for macro signals, I'm like, hey, has it bottomed? Or hey, have we topped out? Jared's the guy I go to. And, he doesn't have a crystal ball like any of us, but he's got to know something. And so I'm hoping that, having him on today, we'll all be able to get a little bit of knowledge and improve our read on the markets and investing. So, Jared, welcome to episode 21 of Value Stack Podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. I appreciate that very flattering intro. Obviously, do the best I can, take the information in front of me. You're a great sounding board for me as well. And I rely on you for all of the Bitcoin updates. And it's cool to finally do this. We talked about it for a while.
Yeah, I know. We've had content before. Like I've came on your show a few times, like the Plus Expected Value, and hopefully I'll come on the Crypto Parabellum podcast. Say that 5 times.
No doubt.
But
yeah, I know.
Right? So before we like dive into more macro topics, as every person I get on the show, talk to me about like how did you come into this Bitcoin rabbit hole from insurance? Because there's like that's not the easiest connection.
No. So yeah, it's multifaceted for me. So I was always into investing, I guess would be the way that I would put it. In like middle school, high school, always looking at equities, stock, whatever it is, gold, even silver. I kind of tracked that as far back as I can remember, which I can't imagine why. I had family members that were into that sort of thing. So my brain was always that kind of way. I also have a risk on personality. Like I'm from Michigan originally, and we have a lot of casinos where you can gamble when you're 18. And so I was going to casinos when I was 18 and like learning how to like gamble against the house at 18 and like play blackjack. And okay, how do you find an edge? And that kind of led me into trading. So I became a trader. I've been trading equities, stocks, and like futures contracts for 11 years. So a long time. And that's actually, I was always a trader while I did various things. I was in sales. I was in all sorts of different types of sales, you name it. I've been in it, but commercial insurance is where I really kind of found my footing and made some pretty good money. Kind of consulting businesses on their commercial insurance needs. And that gave me enough money to be able to actually invest like more heavily in the stock market. It also gives you downtime, right? Because like commercial insurance, if you don't sell, you don't make money, right? So you sell. If you're not working, you don't get paid, but you have this downtime. When you do sell, you can invest. So I started trading, started doing pretty well, getting some decent bonus checks. And throughout my time in working in that world, a person that worked for me when I was in sales management is a guy named Joel Birch. So Joel Birch worked for me. I was his sales manager. This is now, oh God, a long time ago. Okay. Like we're talking 2010, 11, maybe. And so he and I were close. He was like still in college getting his degree. And then like we kept in touch as like we went on to other things. I wasn't even in commercial insurance yet, but I got into other things, investing, trading. He went on to Grubhub, all these other things. And then in about 2014, he messaged me once and he was like, "Hey, you should look at Bitcoin." In 2014. And at this point, I was trading like stocks, and like I said, futures contracts, equities, commodities, whatever it is. And like, quite frankly, man, I don't know if you cuss on the show or not, but my response was like, "Fuck your internet money, dude. Like that's stupid." Like that was my initial response. And I think at the time, like Bitcoin was like, I don't know, $200 roughly.
Mm.
At the time that he initially told me about it. And I was
Ooh.
like, "That's really stupid. There's no way I'd ever do that. I'm gonna buy." And like, quite frankly, I did buy some really great. I bought like Apple and Amazon at like $32 and like a bunch of other things like really early on. So I had some good moves, and I didn't get into it. But he was like, "Yeah, you should definitely look into Bitcoin and whatever it may be." And I went on to like trading, like beating my head up against the wall and trying to like really really get into things and try really hard. And then finally, I started to like um learn more about crypto as time wore on, as I became more cynical about traditional finance, about stocks, about equities. And then that all came full circle. I did not really get back into crypto until like 2019. So there was like a 5-year stretch where I was like blindfolded.
Let me ask you this. So
Um,
what was it
yeah.
about the traditional finance world that like made you like what did you become cynical about particularly?
Well, so like now when I say that, again, 2014, man, that was a long time. It's eight
Well, that was
years
during
ago.
like the tapering kind of period.
Yeah.
The European debt crisis was like 2011, 12. So, they were trying to raise rates. Oil was crashing in 2014, 2015.
No doubt. No doubt. And like the thing is, honestly, completely honest with you, Bat, like I didn't even give it credence to anything other than equities. I thought that was all there was.
Hmm.
So I didn't even think twice about it. I was just like, that's stupid. Like, this is not even real. Didn't even think twice
Yeah.
about it. It was honestly, man, the biggest mistake of my life.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
if I took the time to actually research it and learn about what it was, huh,
yeah.
I'd be in an
Yeah.
entirely different category in my life right now. Okay, like because like
I wouldn't be
so
hosting the show. I'll tell you
yeah, I
that.
wouldn't be here. I'll tell you that much.
I'd be
I'd be on
hiding,
my
man. I'd be
island
on the
somewhere.
beach. Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm glad he did that because I was like, no. And then I ended up coming back 2019. And by the way, that guy Joel Birch is now CEO of a company called Stacked. Stacked
Oh,
actually
okay.
is one of the largest crypto companies in the United States. They
Really?
are actually, oh yeah, they're
They do
becoming
like the
enormous.
automated investing strategies, right? Give us a quick
Automated
shill of
investing
what
strategies.
Stacked is.
They're away from bots now. So the bot, which you and I talked about years ago, that's
Yeah, that's
gone.
not
That
what
that
they.
doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
So now it's all direct through employers. You want to put like a piece of your paycheck into crypto, we can help you manage it. It's like Fidelity for crypto. That's what they are now.
Oh,
And they
okay.
have the licenses through the SEC. They can essentially like their joke was like everybody says not financial advice. Stacks like come get this financial advice. We now are licensed. We set ourselves up where they're now selling directly to companies to go. You can now deposit money here. We will help sit down with you,
Mm,
advise you on how you can invest in crypto. Obviously, Bitcoin being a big part of that. So they did a great transition into what they should be doing, which is becoming compliant with the SEC right away and doing what they need to do to not have any of the garbage that you need to do to like proliferate long term. So anyway, yeah, he's the CEO of that company now. So like he and I go back so long. That's how I got into it. So anyway, I took a 30-second question and I answered it in 10 minutes. But like
no,
the
that's all
point
right,
is,
man. That was
he he told me about it. I dismissed it. I ended up coming back in October 2019. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll get into it. After having tremendous success in equities and futures, in becoming like really dedicating myself to learning technical analysis. And I have a couple of mentors in TA that I was like, do you think this stuff will work in crypto? They're like, yeah. So
mm,
I honestly got into crypto because it looked easy to trade. And like, here's the thing if
right.
you know what you're
It's
doing, it is.
24/7.
Yeah, it's 24/7. If you have the energy for it, it's not hard. But then after I started trading it and making money, I was like, wait, what's this about? And that's when I really started getting into it. And I've just completely fallen in love.
As we all eventually do. Well,
Yeah.
so I mean, you still participate in like other markets, right? Like you still have gold, or you like buy
Oh yeah.
trade on stocks, and
Yep.
you have real estate. I know we talk about your vacation home that you're going to buy, or maybe bought, that I'm going to come visit when
That's
you
right.
retire, or for
Yep.
the third time,
Yeah.
or the second time. So
Yeah.
but I'm curious, like, okay, so where does crypto, I am more specifically thinking Bitcoin, but like, feel free to
Right.
answer it as you wish. Like, where does crypto fit into, in your mind, into like the rest of these asset classes, and how should one think about where it fits in if they're not like super sophisticated, maybe just getting started with investing?
Yeah, so the way that I view it is kind of in terms of like the traditional marketplace, okay? And so I'm going to exclude Bitcoin for a moment. Okay? I'm going to exclude Bitcoin for a moment. I'll come back to Bitcoin. The way that I view crypto is there are value assets, there
Mhm.
are like risk on assets, and then there's crypto, which is risk on crack. Okay. It is essentially the most ridiculous seat of your pants. You can make unbelievable returns, but if you don't practice good risk management, you're going to go broke. You're going to lose your money to me. Okay. You're going to lose your money to me because I know what I'm doing and you probably don't. All right. And that's, look, I'm not saying that to be arrogant. Just you're going to get greedy and I'm not. And so I'm going to know how to play this and you won't because you're going to see the returns and you're going to go, I'm going to go a little bit more and you're going to lose. All right.
Mhm.
And so you look at it like the S&P 500 are the 500 largest companies that have the greatest data, right? They move the most with volatility. Not one of those moves anywhere near anything in crypto, anything close, right? Like it's not even in the same conversation. And so I look at crypto as a way to make, let's say I think it's roughly about 20% of my overall net worth, right?
Mm.
I expect it to outperform the other 80%.
Mm. So it's like a return enhancer.
It's a return enhancer, but it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not setting my life up purely on crypto. That'd be silly.
Right. Right.
And
Well,
again,
okay,
I'm
so
excluding Bitcoin in this conversation
all
so
right.
far.
So that was going to be my next question. So how
Yeah.
does I appreciate you making that distinction. So like, how is Bitcoin different from crypto in that way in your mind, like in the portfolio allocation standpoint? And does
Yeah.
it exist
Yes.
elsewhere?
So for me, it's irresponsible to not allocate even if you're the biggest Bitcoin bear on earth. Like you think it's fucking stupid and it will
Peter
never
Schiff.
come. Yeah. Even if you're Peter Schiff, it's still ignorant to not allocate 3 to 5% of your portfolio exclusively to Bitcoin.
And is that because of the return enhancing properties? It's just like you can have so little, but if it does perform in such a magnitude, it can meaningfully enhance it, even with just a small allocation.
You know what? I would say sure, and like maybe that's more of the result of what would happen versus maybe how I'm viewing it. I think that the need that Bitcoin fulfills for me, do I think it's going to happen? I go back and forth. Okay, I go back and forth on whether or not Bitcoin fulfills its ultimate destiny. I think it will right now.
Mm,
And there's times where I don't, and the reasons why there's times that I don't is because um, well, no, hold on. I know that it will eventually. I just don't know that it will in my lifetime. Okay.
right.
So let me make that distinction. I know that Bitcoin will fulfill its destiny. I just don't know if we're loading all in my lifetime. Maybe my sons, maybe his children. But what it promises to do, allocating that 3 to 5% towards Bitcoin, if it ends up fulfilling that destiny, will 10, 100, 1,000x outperform everything else in your portfolio if that ends up happening. Okay. So for
Right.
me, it's ignorant not to do that.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's just kind of what I was saying in a way. It's like, if it doesn't work out, it's such a small allocation, it won't be the end of your portfolio.
Correct.
But the returns are such a high magnitude that even just having a small allocation could make a huge difference in your overall return if it
Yeah, yeah. So
does.
so I guess it is the same thing that what you said. I guess the way that I'm viewing is like and and when we were talking about topics, it was kind of like insurance for kind of like the world
The
breaking
Fed,
down.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the
that's how
Fed
I mean,
or
that's kind of
whatever
how
it
I
is.
look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's true, and that's kind of the way you have to look at it because yeah, monkeypox outbreak and all these other things that are going on. And oh,
It's
look,
tail
guys,
risk. Yeah.
inflation is like it's looking right now that inflation over the
Wait,
next 2 quarters
wait,
is going to
Jared,
decline.
did you see the inflation? This is on the topic list. Did you see the Inflation Reduction Act? Oh my goodness, dude. I read the fine. Okay, it wasn't even like the fine print. It was literally like the subtext of the headline that it said the Congressional Budget Office forecasts that over the next 2 years, the Inflation Reduction Act will move inflation by less than 1/10 of 1%, and that the direction it moves it could be up or down, meaning
Right.
that, shocker, the Inflation Reduction Act could actually cause inflation. And why would it cause inflation? Because they're printing money. It's like,
Because they're
dude,
printing money to do what they need to do to reduce inflation. It's asinine, right? So those things are the exact reason why you have to allocate that percentage of your
right,
portfolio. And the reason why I go back and forth on it, it is kind of like the Ray Dalio book we were just talking about, the Changing World Order. The US dollar is so ingrained in every market around the world, it's not going to happen overnight. There was a time
no,
where I thought that it would. It's not. Because you can see countries doubling down on the dollar when I wish they wouldn't. They
yeah,
should be moving into Bitcoin. And quite frankly, Bitcoin failed. Bitcoin community failed. They should have done a better job. They should have worked together. They should have found ways to indoctrinate more governments, more people, more grassroots. Like they
who is
failed.
they? Who is they?
I
Right?
don't know, man. Who are your people? But like
No,
that's the
that's
thing.
no, that's like I want to I want to ask this because I have actually never really talked about this on the podcast. Like, and I think this is one of Bitcoin's strengths and problems, right? Because
Yeah.
there is like Ethereum sort of has like the Ethereum Foundation, and they have
Yeah.
like the developers, and like there's people who are early, and like Bitcoin has some of those same people. I'd say like Max Kaiser is probably like one of the big advocates of
Yeah, sure.
Bitcoin, and they've got all the Bitcoin podcasters. But like to me, it seems like the reason that Bitcoin, the system, has kind of like failed in that way to attract more people is that there isn't anyone actually running it, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of like maybe it's like decentralized to a fault almost in some ways. Like
Well,
the
it is. And like
decentralization hampers it.
and dude, the first name you said is Max Kaiser, and like I get
Well,
it.
he's
Like that
yeah.
dude's a fucking clown. And like
Yeah, he's the kind of
I mean,
extreme.
he
Yeah.
has the right message. Don't get me wrong. And like I understand his message. I don't understand his trope. Like, why is that the way you're planning on going about
Yeah.
spreading the message?
All right, fair enough. He was kind of not the right person. Let's use like Jameson Lott, like my
All
coworker.
right, yes, Jameson. I love
Jameson's
Jameson.
like
Okay, he does a
early
great
to
job.
Bitcoin, right? Like
Right,
he's what
right.
many people would like. Who say like Bitcoin people. Jameson is like I imagine what a lot of people would come to mind.
I agree.
But like he isn't really any more control in Bitcoin than I am in that way. Although I'd
Yeah,
say his influence is outsized over mine. But I guess what I'm saying, what I wanted to talk about a bit and just kind of unlock more of what you were thinking is that like Bitcoin sort of like has this problem that it doesn't do a great job of spreading adoption
yeah,
because it's so like there's so many factions, there's so many groups, there's so many
yes.
different interpretations of what it is, how it fits. That's why I was asking, like, where does it sit in your mind relative
It's
to other
become
assets?
counterproductive, man. It's
Yeah.
become extremely counterproductive. It's kind of become its own meme.
Yeah.
Okay. Where it's like we joked about it on our podcast, just kind of the other day, where it's like crypto Bitcoin people essentially at the end of the day, all you can be is like, just please pay somebody in Bitcoin, please. Just, if you're gonna pay
Right.
someone, just please pay them in Bitcoin, please. Just can you? And it's like I get it, and that's what you want to do.
I swear
But
it's a
it's
medium
like
of exchange.
like and like it is, and like I totally get it, but like at the same
Yeah.
time, it's a store of value. Like I don't trade people gold. I have gold.
Right.
I don't
Right.
trade people for it, right? Like acquire it, store
Right.
value in it. Let's reduce volatility. Let's increase the market cap. Let's trade out loans for real world assets with Bitcoin as the collateral base, right? Like let's find ways to make it more real. And it takes those guys like Jameson and some of the OGs to step out and put their necks on the line to say, this is how we gain this forward. And look, I think as again, continuing the meme forward, as dumb as it is, BlackRock wading in with we're going to talk about it on our podcast tomorrow. BlackRock wading in with Coinbase is a good
Big.
thing,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think like that's sort of where I still sit today. I mean, I agree with you, and like I see it more as like Fed insurance, but I mean, I'm not ignorant of the pervading narratives. I guess where maybe we differ a bit is that I am not sure, like I'm not sure that it's anyone's job specifically to spread Bitcoin adoption.
That's
And
fair.
like the hardcore Bitcoin maxis would say Bitcoin itself, the network, the economic incentives of it, the proof of work, the difficulty adjustment, the 4-year halvings, those are the things that will spread adoption. And if you, and the Satoshi's got a quote, is like, if you're not smart enough to figure it out, like I don't have time to explain it to you, right?
I
So
mean,
that I
Baps,
don't agree
dude,
with it necessarily,
I
but that's
look,
I think
everything
the
you just
other
said, I agree with. But look, as someone who worked in management for 10 years and in sales, selling to people, and I'm a people person, meaning I've
yeah.
talked to a lot of people and I like talking to people. People are a lot more dumb than you think.
Oh
Okay.
no, I realize.
So like in a room of people who have gotten smart enough to understand what you and I are smart enough to
Yeah.
understand right now, I agree with you, but that simply is not the case, and that's not how it's going to work. So like if you go down on our bullet
Right.
point list how to teach Bitcoin, it is the number one thing that should be focused on for Bitcoin. You can delete everything else in the Bitcoin sphere, Lightning Network, DeFi and Bitcoin payments, all that bullshit, okay?
Right.
It should be teaching about what it is, why it matters, the decline of the dollar, how spending power goes down, how your governments fuck you constantly, and you just bend over and take it. That is what should be taught constantly,
Yep.
and no one's doing it. I mean, they are, but in a really like fragmented way, right?
Right.
Like get together 10 guys that are worth billions of dollars from Bitcoin and be like, hey, let's put out the best fucking educational content in the world. We're going to do it in 70 languages. We're going to do it in every manner possible. And we're going to spread it around the world. We'll pay people money to go into towns and talk about it. You want to get adoption? That's how you do it.
Right. And so are those things like just kind of endowed by already like wealthy Bitcoiners? Because like
Yes.
there's no Bitcoin foundation to fund it,
Yeah,
right?
it
So
is.
I think that it takes initiative from people who care. And I mean, look, that's what we've said it many times. Like, we don't make any money on this podcast. So valuestack.xyz, you can support the show, listen on
Right.
Fountain. But the reality is like Bitcoin's media, the presence, the initiatives, that's all decentralized, right? Like I'm not coordinating with Peter McCormick like on which
Right.
content I'm going to cover and which content he's going to cover, and like where should we cross to make sure that it's the most educational, like and to a detriment like that isn't done. And I think that's sort of a byproduct of a decentralized system and sort of the trade-offs that it makes. But I agree, there's some small initiatives like Bitcoin Design Guide, the Lightning Development Kit, the Bitcoin
Yeah.
Development Kit. Most of those Square, Cash App, Block, whatever their name is these days,
Yeah. No shit.
they are the ones that are really pushing that forward. And I think we need to see, because like endowments like that don't just happen spontaneously. They have to come from somewhere. And because Bitcoin's decentralized, it's not just going to happen from somewhere. Someone's got to do it. So it's got to come from either individuals who care about the cause enough to do it in a charitable
Yeah.
way, or companies that see a profit where they're like, we
Right.
can benefit from furthering this open source system and we can increase our bottom line. Therefore, we're going to actually fund development in something that's not directly related to our company, but will enhance our company and our
Yeah.
competitive advantage over
It
the line.
will
That's why you see,
indirectly benefit us. Right.
that's why Cash App or Square is
Yeah.
funding it. That's why you see Robinhood integrating Lightning Network. Like Coinbase has got a self-custodial wallet. Like Coinbase doesn't,
Yeah.
you would imagine like Coinbase probably doesn't have a huge profit incentive for you to take a self-custody wallet, but like they know that the more resilient the crypto ecosystem is, the
Yeah.
better off they'll be, right?
But Bap, those are all half measures, man. That's the problem.
Well, what would
Like
a
they're
full measure be?
so like here's the thing, and you know I'm gonna be right on this, but I'll let you disagree
Okay.
if you want. If some for-profit organization came out and was like, we're gonna own the Bitcoin education worldwide because we'll be able to control the narrative for educating people on Bitcoin for our own gain, corporate wide. Do you think that'd fire up the Max community to be like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, because they're going to be able to shift wherever they want. Like, if somebody came out to say that we're going to own this and we're gonna be able to tweak it how we like and drive everybody to our company for profit, don't you feel like the Bitcoin maxi community would lose their minds?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think like it would depend on like if they were saying we are the
Yeah.
education thing, yeah, I think they would have a problem with that. But if they say,
Uh-huh.
hey, like we're funding education and we want to be a great resource for people, then I mean, sure, there's still going to be the ones that are all the way on the edge that are like anything like company, like no, no, no.
Right.
But I do think like it depends on how they position it. Like
That's
I
true.
know I know at Casa, like we're trying to really focus more on education because we realize like
It has to.
multi-signature wallets, like you've got to have like several steps that you get to before you get to that one, right?
Yeah.
So, and the way for us to increase our business is to actually get increased Bitcoin adoption, right?
No
Because
doubt.
without Bitcoin adoption, you don't realize the importance of storing Bitcoin. And without storing Bitcoin, you don't realize the need for a redundant wallet. So,
And I
you
mean,
know,
like,
it's like
you
these
know,
phases.
it seems opportunistic, but like the stories out of Ukraine should be things that you guys should be soliciting. And it seems horrible to solicit that. But like, do you know how many family fortunes were saved because of Bitcoin? People fleeing
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Well, and that's I think some of the maxis say like, you know, it'll show itself over time. Like it's not that Bitcoin has to win. All it's got to do is survive. Fiat will show how good Bitcoin is just by failing on
Truly,
itself.
I no doubt, I agree with that. And so, like, I think and we can move on after this or keep going. I don't really care. But like, we had there was a I had a fairly one of my videos that went like fairly viral, not crazy, but like a couple thousand views. Was where like in the fall when things started to break down, I got like really angry about Bitcoin. I got really angry, and I was like, "This is literally from 2008 to this moment. Bitcoin was built for this moment, and
Yeah,
and we, yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
and we
and it's
fucked
like
it
it's
up."
not. Yeah,
Yeah, and like literally we should have done more, we should have been out more, we should have been the alternative, and because we either were too proud or too ashamed or got too rich too quick, depending on the people that got in early and just like kind of sat back on our haunches and didn't care, we missed this window. And like it's just gonna take longer now because we should have been there like shining
yeah,
knights to go, this
yeah.
is our moment. And instead now it's gonna be a slow bleed over time. So you're right. It will like that's why I said initially I said, I don't know if it'll succeed. Then I kind of checked myself to say, no, it definitely will. I just don't know that it will in my lifetime because unless they get better about education, who knows when it happens?
Right, right. Well, I mean, the long term, the maxis would say like zoom
We
out,
don't care.
increase your time preference. You know, it's like,
Fuck
but I
you,
think
dude.
like, look, I'm
I'd
a
have to be alive to
maxi.
see it. Okay.
I'm a maxi, and I will tell you, like, I struggle with on a like consistently, like today, like I go back and forth, and it's like I recognize that I may hold this asset that my like great great grandchildren may like idolize me for, and be
Yeah,
like,
they're gonna have
are
statues made out to you, and
right,
they're
like
literally gonna, yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
and that's like really cool. And I like I do there. I was telling my partner this. Like I find like a level of mental emotional satisfaction from that. Like
That's nice.
no, like the knowing that something with that long term of thinking could be possible
Okay.
makes me feel good about the impact that I'm able to make. However,
Yeah.
I also am human and I have a finite life. And in order for me to keep having this sort of long term time horizon and be like, all right, like it's not about me, right? You have to reward yourself a little bit as you go to keep your motivation up. So, like, I am
Yeah.
struggling with the fact of, it's like, dude, I'm in my 30s and it's like, I want to live, but I don't want to live so extravagantly or short term thinking that I rob the long term potential of what could be. Right. So
Yeah.
for me, it's about like finding balance. And it's like, how do I not like live like a complete, you know, hermit, like frugal as all hell? Sure, you might have a million Bitcoin, but like, you know, you haven't like worn new socks in them. You haven't bought socks in a year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's
I
a
think that
you
there's
gotta
a
find that
balance.
balance, right?
It's a
Yeah.
personal, like I think each person's is different, right? Like, and I think as you get older, maybe that skews more towards the immediacy. Like when you're young, it's
Yeah.
very easy to have a long term time horizon. As I'm getting older, I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
You know
Like
what?
Bitcoin, yeah, my great great grandkids may like worship me and have statues, but like, you know what? they might not. Here's where, all right, we'll move on after this. Here's where I've recently like come to a new kind of idea about this is like, they may have these, but they may not appreciate what I went through. They
That's
may
right.
not actually appreciate what they
And they'll
have.
blow it. Yeah.
They may blow it. Imagine I'll be
Yeah.
rolling over in my damn grave. I'll be
Oh
like,
yeah,
I
dude.
sacrificed 50 years of like being the shit, enjoying my life, and you just
Yeah.
spent it all on a trip to like the Milky Way galaxy in like
Yeah,
one
dude.
one week. Are you kidding me? Like that was my
Yeah.
entire life force, and you just blew it because you don't appreciate it. So
I
like, there's like, there's a catch to everything.
that saying of like, I'm gonna say this with a gender, but I don't mean it this way. It's just a saying, so don't come after me, woke people. Um, the saying goes like, "Hard times create hard men create easy times
These times
create
create
soft
weak
men."
men. Yeah,
Yeah, or whatever it is.
soft. Yeah,
Weak
yeah.
men create
Create
hard
hard
times. So,
times. Yep.
like that cycle's
It's a
real, okay? And what
cycle.
you're
Yeah.
talking about is why the next iteration of trusts
Yep.
needs to happen on the Bitcoin blockchain. Okay. We're like, yes,
Yeah.
you can have access to this fortune under these circumstances so like have Casa whip that up where it's like, as long as you demonstrate your appreciation for exactly what you're inheriting here, you get access to it. And if not, no, right? Like,
There's some wisdom there, Jared. I think that there is no breaking the cycle because
yeah,
if let's put Bitcoin aside, like everything in life is a cycle, like the
yeah,
creation and death of the universe on the like
no doubt.
most grand scale. So there,
Absolutely.
it is pointless trying to end the cycle when it is the nature of existence. So
The nature of
I
things,
think
man.
like there's another quote that reminds me of from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations is one. And it's like, you got to
Yeah.
roll, like the hard work comes every 3 generations. And,
Same.
my grandpa was a Depression era child, and my dad grew up in like the baby boomer generation. And here I am getting the tail end of the last, and like my kids, will have it probably pretty easy
Yeah.
because of the sacrifices that I've made for in their name that they don't even exist yet.
Right.
And then because of their sort of taking for granted of that ability, that is opportunity, they will then breed kids who are a little more, and then it starts all over again, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You got it.
it's the yin yang of life, dude. The
So
ancient
it
Chinese
goes.
secrets they know.
You got
But
it.
all right, well, we're gonna skip some things, but one thing I think
Yeah.
is a
No.
good segue into this is investing in emotions. And so like
Yeah.
we're talking about balance, right? And like the cycles. And it's like the markets do it too, right? We've been in this. I mean, it's been a rough couple months, but I think I don't remember if we were recording when I said this, but like you've been killing it the last couple months. So like, where are we at in the market, and like, how do you navigate through this stuff, man? Because like you said, crypto's way more volatile, so it's even more emotionally trying than your traditional
Yeah.
investing.
Yeah. I think that the the thing about people message me all the time on Twitter, on Telegram, um, whenever you know, whenever they can contact me, they're always like, "Hey, I want to learn how to trade. Like, teach me how to trade." And I always say that literally lines on charts or buying here and selling there, like that is not hard. Okay, like it really isn't. Like,
Hard
yes,
for
I'm
me.
training. Right, right. Well, okay. So I'm trained in technical analysis. That's looking at charts. That's like trying to find good entry points and good exit points. But technical analysis is really just reading the emotions of the
Right,
market, right?
right.
Um, but that starts with managing your own emotions.
Mm.
Okay. And if you cannot manage your own emotions, you cannot trade profitably.
How can someone like okay, where can someone start to like gauge how good they are at managing their own emotions? Like what would be a good indicator if like you're good at managing your emotions or not? Like
Yeah, yeah. So you need to be able to like take a loss and not feel a thing. Take
Yeah.
profits, not feel a thing, okay? And like
Totally. Yeah.
that's literally it. And the thing is that comes down with like planning out trades. So I'll tell this story quickly. When I first started trading, like my first 18 months, 24 months in equities, I had an unbelievable like first year and a half, 2 years. It was legit like I think I was up like 250% in like 2 years in equities, which is hard. Okay.
Right.
Like the market was good, but like that was hard.
Yeah.
And I thought I was like God. I was like, this is unbelievable. Like I think I put in like 35 grand or 40 grand and over six figures. And I was like, it's unbelievable. I'm amazing. And then in the span of like 48, 72 hours, I lost not only everything that I made, but every penny of that. Okay.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
Uh-huh. So I went from put in 50 to up to, like roughly 130, 150 grand to like, I think I had like $1,200 left in my account because I
Was
got
it
into
options trading?
it was trading options. Yeah. So like
Yep.
options is like essentially trading volatility on crack. So it's a
Right.
hundred times leverage. I thought I was a god, and I got into like trading options. I remember with trade was I'm not going to get into it now, but I literally cracked my entire account in the span of like 3 days because I thought I was better.
Yeah.
And that was the most I think pain I've ever felt emotionally about things. Not talking about family, like I'm setting that apart. Like when my grandparents died or like whatever, like
Yeah.
that's
Like
different. But like
investing related.
yeah, like you've never like you give away 2 years, 2.5 years of your life, and it's
Yeah.
gone in like a long weekend, and you're like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
what?" Like you
Dude.
learn discipline real quick, okay? And unfortunately, Bappy usually takes a story like that for people to kind of
Yep.
learn that discipline.
It happened to me, man. I mean, I think I probably shared some of it with you like last summer. Really, it was even like it was in the spring. I like went long a bunch of Bitcoin mining stocks in my
Yeah,
retirement account. And like, dude, I tripled my retirement account in like the span of a month. And I had been contributing to this account for 10 years.
yeah.
And it's a Roth. So it was like all tax free. And
Oh
then
my god.
in 6 months, it's like down 90%. Like, and I just stood there frozen. And I was like, uh,
Yeah.
and like it got worse and it got
Uh-huh.
worse. And I was like, there's no way this is happening. Right. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
holy shit, like 10 years of my life. And that was, it's like, wasn't even that much money, but it was like the emotional aspect of like,
Oh
I
yeah.
remember like going to work and like taking a Roth 401k and like putting my paycheck aside. And I'm like, I could have went to the
Right.
bars or I could have had a
That's
nice
right.
dinner. And it's like all of these little sacrifices that I've been making for a freaking decade just gone,
Yeah.
and it's gone. And it
Just
was
yeah.
that was the hardest part.
And it's gone. It's just disgusting. Yeah. So it's like same
I mean, I
deal,
still
man.
got the stocks.
Yeah, they're still there. So like that that lesson teaches you real quick about like why did I do that? One, it was greed. Why did I need
Agreed.
to do that? I wanted to get to my goals faster. Like I'd
Yes, that
already
was
been
it.
doing
And
great.
then I didn't sell because I wanted to get back to break even. I was like,
Correct.
I
And
gotta
like
get that high watermark back. That anyone who's listening, I know that you've probably
yeah,
experienced this. Dude, those that like gotta get back to break even, a
that's right.
refusal to cut a loss, or
Yep.
like gotta get to this certain high watermark number and then I'm gonna quit. Both of those things are surefire signs you don't have control over your emotions in
And
investing,
that's how
I
you
think.
go broke, man. And
Yep.
so, like, thankfully for me, it happened like a couple years in. And then after that, I've been on a steady incline the rest of my life because I learned that lesson very hard. And I was married. Like, that was fun, a fun conversation with my wife, being like,
Cool,
hey,
I
remember
bet.
that money that I made? It's all
That's
gone. And the
gone.
money we put in's gone now, too. I need to go work hard. Like, that sucked real bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you kind of change your way of thinking, you change your risk profile. And so the way that I enter and exit trades now is I look at it and go, okay, I think a bottom is it. And like I very, very publicly called the bottom last summer. I very publicly called the bottom a month ago. Okay. Less than a month ago. And like it's just
The day I
certain
sold Juno.
pretty much like
Yeah.
it pretty much lines up. And like there are just things that come together. But you know what? If I was wrong, there was a clear invalidation
Right.
where I would have known I was wrong. I would have gone back to cash or gone short in the market. And
The
so the
key
point, yeah, go
is
ahead.
doing work ahead of time.
Yeah,
That's what
it's
I'm
doing
hearing. Like if you don't do work ahead of time, then you're just pissing and trading in emotions completely,
That's
right?
right. But Bap, here's the thing I'd say that goes along with that too. Again, it's like greed and urgency that's like misplaced urgency, which is like greed, like time-based greed. Like I want to get there now, like I need to get it done
Mhm.
now. Okay. So like a lot of people forced trades on Bitcoin and Ethereum on the free fall. There was no reason to do it, okay? There was no reason to do it. You weren't in a place that was a high percentage play. It was not a plus expected value trade, which is why that's the name of my technical analysis
Got
show.
him.
Yeah, it is literally you need to put yourself in a position where it's more likely the trade goes in your way versus doesn't. And if you trade mid range while in a free fall, I mean, it's essentially like you might as well just go to a casino
Right.
and put your money on red or black. And like, yeah, green could happen, but like, whatever, you got a 50% chance. Like, put yourself in a situation where it's more likely to work than not and have an invalidation. We're like, I thought it was here. It wasn't. Okay. I'll take my money off the table and wait for a better situation. And if you're not trying to force your financial needs in this moment, then it's very easy to be objective. But the problem is, and I see it all the time now, people are like, I have to get this, I have to get this car, I want to pay off this debt, I want to do this thing, take this vacation, do whatever. And
Mhm.
I'm like, when things got easy for me, man? I'm 37 years old, okay? I quit my job last February. Last February, I quit my job. I've been investing well for a long time. I've been making more money than 97% of this country for a long time. And I quit, okay? I could have kept working. And I just chose to leave. I
Right. The
kept
priorities.
my I kept working, I kept stacking more, I kept doing better because I did not feel like I needed to make a trade to live, to eat.
Right.
So I didn't. Right? Does that make sense?
Well, and I think like a part of that is probably like your life stage, like being like you had a child not too long ago, right? I think
Yes,
like
correct.
as you get older, the numbers in the account become kind of irrelevant, and it
They do.
becomes more of like what you accomplish with your life and like what
Yeah,
are the things that you find meaningful. Like I mean, like for me, like we were talking like a little bit ago about like the great grandkids who won't appreciate it. Like I think like that sort of vision in what I have like illustrates really where like my priorities are. Is like
no doubt.
I want like to create opportunities for. It's not about like having fancy clothes and
Yeah,
jets and. I mean, like I had like nice meals, but I can cook better than most chefs.
I know.
So
Isn't that crazy? When you have that realization, you're like, I actually cook better than most places
like
I go and spend.
and healthier, and I control the
Yeah,
portions. Like you never
right,
talk about
right.
that, but like it's like it's not. It's a somebody said they tried to call my bullshit because they were like, dude, you're not in Bitcoin for this like selfless reason, and I was like, well, kind of like it's selfless in a way that like I don't plan to like extract the value that it accrues, but like it's selfish in that like I still benefit from the egotistical fact that somebody might benefit from my work and be like,
That's right.
dang, he was a real. So, it's like, it's complicated, but I think
Yeah.
like as you get older, your priorities become about like less about achievement and like more about like enrichment. And I guess is like like
100%. And
in
you
a
can say the same about
quality
me.
over
Like, oh,
quantity
if you've done so well, why do you do this? Like, why do you stream? What do you? Yeah,
because it's fun. I
yeah.
enjoy
It's
talking. We enjoy,
yeah.
like we're
I
not
have a good
making money
time.
doing this.
No, no. I have two and
One
a
day,
half shows that I do now. Okay,
two and a
so and I
half.
don't. I get paid $0 for others. Yeah, I
W-
show up on another one sometimes too. And
what are the shows these days? You've got the plus expected value was like
yep,
the Twitch, right? And then you
yeah.
do
Plus expected values on Twitch. I
the
have the Crypto Parabellum
crypto
podcast. Yeah, with Alan. He's the
with
chief
Alan.
operating officer for Stacked.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Are you still working with them? Like is it still the Stacked Labs chat or is it
Yeah, it's still
officially
Stacked
migrated?
Labs. So it's like moderately sponsored, not really. But like they're just my buddies, right? So like, I kind of fly under their banner and they give me some like free pub for doing it.
Cool, right.
And then like I do some stuff with the taxi too here and there. So,
W-
you know,
What so this is a new show, Crypto Parabellum. What
yeah.
is a Parabellum and what is the Crypto Parabellum podcast about?
Yeah, yeah. So Parabellum, I really just kind of took it. It's really more of like a Bitcoin like line that I took to name this. But There's that line, "If you want peace, prepare for war."
Mm.
It's an old like Latin saying. I forget. I'm not going to do the Latin justice, so I won't. But the "prepare for war" translates to Parabellum.
Mm.
So crypto Parabellum essentially translates to crypto prepare for war.
Within
Podcast.
or amongst? Like within
No, no, no.
factions
So
or
yeah, so
from
no,
the
the way that I
outside?
see it is like war against traditional finance and like
Oh,
what's
okay.
going on like
Because depending on who
in the
you
world.
ask,
Yeah,
they would say that there's like a lot of infighting going on. Like I think this morning there were a few Twitter spaces and a few popular Bitcoin developers that were saying that like Bitcoin, the narrative wars are just beginning, and that once Ethereum switches to proof of stake, the
yeah,
climate narrative is just going to really ramp up, and and that like Bitcoin, kind of what we were talking about, like having this sort of, I will say that ETH seems to rally a bit better around their developer base.
yeah, they do.
Um, Maybe that's like not altruistically, but that's just my perception.
Yeah,
Um, but I think like there's gonna be some fighting within crypto too,
yeah. I wish
not
there
just
weren't.
like
I think it's counterproductive every time they
it is
do.
counterproductive.
Yeah. The proof of stake, proof of work, whatever. You know what I like about Ethereum? I think Ethereum is solving real world problems. I think Ethereum is disrupting Web 2 for Web 3. I think that it's a better chance at maintaining some semblance of privacy and security without completely going into Bitcoin. So it's like a hedge in between and can disrupt the Amazons and Microsoft of the worlds if eventually to get there, and TradFi. All those things appeal to me. So I'm going to be interested in it. As soon as they disrupt another industry, I'll be there for it. That's why I like NFTs. It's why I like other things. So I don't really care. They exist both in my head just fine.
Yeah, what my concern about proof of stake is the interest generation mechanism.
Yeah.
So if ETH has a finite number of quantity supply, just like Bitcoin, and because of that, like if you also have to have ETH and then generate yield based on that as a percentage of your total stake, eventually, like because the size of the pie is fixed, the richer will get a larger quantity of of the rewards, and then like the richer will get rich. Like, and this may be like
Yeah.
it may take hundreds of years for this like centralization factor to happen, but
Yeah.
I've like thought about it, and I'm like, it's eventually going to end up like the wealth disparity will be just the same because of the yield generation mechanism, because it gives you return on your existing assets, whereas Bitcoin doesn't have that. So
Potentially.
yeah, I think it, but I the world is a crazy place. We just saw the galaxy like hundreds of trillions of light years away.
Then
That's
nuts,
like from
dude.
the, yeah, like, but yet like my security camera still can't see the guy who stole the package off my front porch. Not sure what that's about,
I know,
but
right?
that's like
Crazy.
the world we're in. Like right coming up, it's like there's this disparity in technology, that like, an accessibility in technology, right? Like we grew up with like phones in our hands these days,
That's right.
where like, I mean, well, kids these days do, like we didn't.
Oh my God, no,
And
dude. I didn't have a phone until I had a car.
yeah, like right. It's like, oh, that's how you know you're getting old, when you're like, I remember when. And I caught myself saying that a few times, and that's how I
Right.
know I'm old. But I didn't grow up in the crypto native time, but like
No.
there's kids that were born in 2001 that are old enough to drink, and that's
Holy
pretty
shit.
insane. And these people, like Bitcoin was 7 years old when it came out, and the financial crisis, or they were 7 years old, 8 years old when Bitcoin came out, and the financial crisis happened when they were seven. So they were in, second grade. So like
Yeah, they have no
these
idea.
kids, like by the time they started getting allowances at 10, 11, right? They're like, Bitcoin was already like trading. Like Blue Wallet was a thing. Like, Casa wasn't
Yeah.
a thing much longer. So like what I'm leading up to is like
Good point.
having a young son, and like how do you see, like, do you see like are your kids generation, are they just going to be
Ooh.
like, ugh, fiat money, paper money, like ha ha ha, that's like a beeper to us, right? Like, do you think that they're going to see this the same way, or is there still going to be some, given that fiat is so deeply 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 entrenched in our world
Yeah.
today still, do you think maybe it's his kids generation that will be the ones that are like the crypto natives?
What I would say to him, and I honestly, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question. I've never even thought about how I would begin to broach that subject.
Hmm.
So good question, man. Kudos to you.
We'll make a
Um,
clip.
yeah, yeah. What I would say to him, and also to you, to your kids, to anybody listening, um, any given day that you participate in the markets at large, you have to take a look at the landscape and learn to evaluate everything at your disposal. Okay. Today, Fiat has a role. There's a role that it plays, and I participate in it willfully because I know that role exists today. Tomorrow, I'll wake up again and I'll reevaluate.
Hmm.
And as I direct my assets and as I invest, I focus on things that have real value. When I say real value, I don't mean fiat. It doesn't to me. It's a method to value, but that's why I like land. That's why I like real
Hmm.
estate. That's why I like productivity producing assets. And I
Right.
think that's probably how I will have that conversation first
Hmm.
to go, would you rather have a bunch of something which can be diluted over time, or would you rather have something that is productive or limited in its like its ability to be produced, and then kind of back into the tenets behind that? And so every day I wake up and I go, well, what's changed today? Well, not much. We know what the government's going to do. I'm going to continue putting my money into homes, real estate, into value producing assets, and hedging appropriately with Bitcoin until I see reasons to push it even further. I mean, I have a lot of money in Bitcoin, but it's not a significant percentage yet because I think there's a lot of work to be done. So as far as fiat goes, there is a there's a the reason to own fiat right now. I wish there weren't. God, the day where I don't have to, the day where he doesn't have to, will be the best day of my life. Or his kids. I don't really know, but unfortunately, we're just not there yet. So I think that it's like you got to have that open view to say, right now it is what it is. And
Right.
here's maybe the more controversial thing. I hope, I hope that cooler heads prevail, that we get our budget under control, that they get better monetary policy, that they rein this thing in, and we don't go that way. Um, because if the dollar collapses, there's going to be wars, there's going to be famine, there's going to be loss of life at such a magnificent rate that it's going to be asinine. So I hope it doesn't happen. I think it will, but that's what's going to happen, and there's no like maybe, right? So if the dollar goes away, which we all kind of silently hope that it does, it's not going to go down quietly.
Hmm. Good, interesting take. I think I agree with most of that. The dollar going away part, yeah, I think it's going to take some time, and it's very easy. Like, I think government will increasingly play less of a role in our life,
Yeah, hopefully.
but it also could play an increasingly more. Like, you look at China
Yeah,
and you look at technology and how it's given their government the ability to surveil every facet of your life and control it in a way. And that's scary. But you look at things like Bitcoin and it's kind of like, well, this gives you a way to liberate
yeah,
in through the same tool of technology. Same with things like encrypted messengers that,
sure.
same with zero knowledge protocols. Like, so I, like it reminds me of the movie. There's probably a bunch of movies. I'm blanking on any particular one, but like, it's like technology can be used for good. It can be used for evil. Like AI can be like the futuristic thing that makes a cryptopia. Still thinking about that hack from 2018.
Yeah, right.
Man, it could be a utopia or a dystopia, and it really just depends like on the people that we like let kind of steer the ship and like how we regulate. But it gets interesting because we're like as a species, right? Like, do you remember the Georgia Guidestone thing that happened like a month ago?
No.
They blew up this like it was like the Stonehenge of US basically.
Did they?
Somebody blew it up, yeah. And the Georgia Guidestones, I think basically it was like a Christian thing, and they said that like the world's population should be kept under like 500 million or something. Like it was some kind of it was some number that we're well above. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but like the I do think there's some sense of like we're getting so big that like it's very 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 hard for a small group of people like to control large groups of population, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like having one queen ant try to control 500 ant colonies at once. Like no,
Right.
she controls her own colony and that's it. Like so I think like there's some challenges as we continue to globalize and technology helps us connect more. How do we like make sure that it doesn't also like come down and like take away opportunities? And I don't have an answer for that. I think that's like I don't think anyone does really.
No. No, it doesn't. You know, the China thing's interesting just because they have such a different way of life. In that new Ray Dalio book, he talks about it. He talks about China a lot in all of his books, but they just have a different way of thinking, right? America is
Right.
completely, really, the whole Western culture is
It's about me.
I look at me first, and then after me, I look out for the good of everyone, right?
Other way
And then
around. Right.
China is I look out for the country
For
first,
we.
and then after the country is taken care of, I look out for myself. And so it makes more sense that there would be that level of oversight from the government. That would
Yeah.
never happen here. You would see a coup, you would see the civil
Yeah.
war, you would see infighting before it happened. But like the there's so many things that can try to go down that path that could lead to internal conflict, which would lead us vulnerable to external us as Americans, lead us vulnerable to external like you know fights, right? Like for
Right.
people to come after us, right?
Do you think
So
the
yeah,
nations? Do you think the states will separate the United States?
I think they should.
Who? So I've thought about this a bit, where it's like I do think there are very ideological divides between the United States more than ever today,
Yeah,
as far as like maybe you could say like conservative liberals, but I don't even think it's that. I think it's people who trust the government and people who don't.
yeah,
And I would say that's more obvious on which side you fall than like the political camp, because Republicans and Democrats, in my mind, say the same thing these days. It's
yeah.
like, it's more of us, more for the state and less for you. But
That's right.
anyway, I think what I've wondered is like, if the United States were to fragment like that, like, all right, maybe like states' rights and like more city state type localization of politics is better, but who protects us from the outside threats? Like China's this like massive billion people superpower that's totally
Yeah.
fine with like being one nation. So like how do we protect ourselves from like the Russias of the world? Or like I can tell you Denver, Colorado is not going to fend off an invasion from Russia,
No
but
doubt.
like the United States could. So
Right.
like where like we gotta do we just have like this global military, but then like politics is like more local, but then like who decides where the military goes? You know, it's like the hard
You know, it
questions of life.
it, it,
And who
it
pays the
all
military?
right, right. In all honesty, I think the answer is for us to go back to how we were intended to be as a country.
Tribal
States are supposed to run themselves.
states, yeah.
The states were supposed to be countries. The states were supposed to
Right.
be independent countries that shared resources for the purposes of military and trade. Okay, like that
And
was
that's
it,
it.
and that's it.
And
And that's why like the overturning of Roe v.
so
Wade was
shared
stupid.
military would be a
Yeah,
thing still.
shared military would be a thing, and it would be non-political, which is what it should be, and it always has been, and always would be. And like the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which is obviously stupid, but it was based in the tenet of that. That was a
States'
federal
rights.
decision that it should go
Right.
back to the states.
Right.
All
It
50
wasn't
states
saying
vote
abortion is bad or
correct.
good. It was saying the states should decide whether
That's right.
abortion is
And quite
allowed or
frankly,
not.
I am not personally in favor of abortions. However, that's not my call for anybody else. Okay. That's my call for
Right.
me. If I have an issue in my state, I should go talk to my congressman about that
Or leave the state if
or to
your
leave the state.
politics don't represent your ideology. I agree
That's
with
right.
that completely.
That's
That's why I'm
how
in Colorado.
Right. That's how this whole shit was intended to be, and somehow we lost the thread so
Yeah.
tremendously along the way that this is where we are. So to your point about like, should there be different countries? Yeah, but really, I think in reality, we should get closer back to how we were, and I think that actually it could reach a fever point where it's like, are we going to actually break up into different countries, or should we just like go
Yeah.
back to how these dudes said we should have done it like 250 years ago?
So I have a theory that I'm sitting on that
Okay.
I think the federalization of money and like the politicization of monetary policy is
Okay.
part of what caused that sort of meshing together where it's like when you had states and individual regions, they sort of balanced their own budgets, they were more
Yeah.
isolated from each other. Whereas when you really like increase the federal social programs like Medicaid and Social Security, like you started like really slushing together the funding,
Yeah.
and through that you start really removing the differences between one another. And from a cultural standpoint, obviously there's a huge difference between like rural Alabama and like inner city San Francisco,
Right.
so much so that they basically could be different countries, and if you walk down it you would
No
think
doubt.
it's a different country, right? But like from a monetary standpoint, they use the same dollar. They follow the same laws for the most part. So I I I think that
Yeah, you're not wrong to be honest with you. Like
making
there,
everybody use the same currency and follow the same, be subjected to the same bending over and take your tax and inflation like a good little boy. I think
yeah.
that sort of has made all the states kind of have to all be like a victim of the same circumstance, like they've
Right.
lost some of their independence.
100%, 100%, man. And like honestly, I've never thought about it that way, but like dead on, man. You're 100% right.
It's like,
I've never even
it's like
thought
we
about it. I need
all,
to think about that more, but I think I
yeah.
like that idea.
Yeah, like we all watch the same news channels, that all are funded by the same public companies, that all have the same political lobbyists, that all get,
Yep.
it all like I just feel like there's this sort of like singularity in the mainstream media or the legacy
Truly.
media. And then there's this new media, which is like your podcast, my podcast, Lex
Yeah, yeah,
Friedman,
yeah.
Joe Rogan. Like there's this, and that's like the divide. There's like, are you like, do you believe politics or do you not? And
Right.
like, that's the two. It's no longer left, right. It's either for or against legacy media
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I think that's spot on, man. Like I'm so unbelievably cynical nowadays. Like
yeah.
I don't trust
Crypto will
anything.
do that.
Yeah,
Don't
like
trust.
I don't trust
Verify.
anything. I'll verify. I need multiple sources from anybody that's paid to do anything. Like no way.
What are some things that you think like you're keyed in on right now? Like I get the skepticism. I'm the same way. Like,
Yeah.
what are one or two things that like you think or are aware of or is like obvious to you that most people just and
Like
not Bitcoin. That can't be one.
so you're just talking about like in life?
Yeah, yeah, could be. Like I mean it could be like investing, but like I really more of
Yeah.
like the current, I'd say like the current environment that we're in, like
Yeah.
what is it like to be a US citizen in 2022 who's like raising a kid and like
Yeah.
trying to see like what's down the path of the future, and like how do you, what are something that you think you're keyed in on and like where we're headed that most people don't? Like it could be
Well,
like the states are separating, like that could, it could be an example.
yeah, yeah. Well, like give you an example. I moved out of Illinois 5.5 years ago, right? Because I kind of saw the writing on the wall of what was happening in like those types of states.
Hmm. With big
Because
cities.
yeah, big cities, tax, be it income, sales, or property, all going crazy. I think that's going to continue. And actually, one thing that I think I'm keyed in on more than most, and people were like, "You're dumb. Why would you move to?" I live in Indiana now, and I moved to Indiana, still in the greater Chicagoland area, because
Gary.
yeah, not Gary,
Represent.
but close. Hey, Michael Jackson's from Gary. I
I
didn't
heard
realize
it's
that's
the
on the
highest murder rate of any town per capita in the entire country.
It
Gary,
was.
Indiana.
It is no
Oh,
longer.
yeah, because nobody lives there anymore.
Yeah, correct. Which is great for me. 'Cause I have to
Can't
drive
kill
through
a ghost.
occasionally. That's right.
Sorry, I'm distracting you.
No, no, you're
Okay,
fine.
you
You're fine.
moved out of Illinois. You saw the writing. I think same big cities are like on their
Yeah,
way out, and rural
that's
life is
right.
about to have a comeback to Jesus moment.
That's right. So you're seeing I moved out because and look, that was pre-pandemic, right? I saw the writing on the wall just from a tax
Mm,
and like Chicago's liabilities and like what was happening in Illinois with the unions, et cetera. And like I saw the writing on the wall in terms of what was going to happen to property long term. And I like long term for me, then I was thinking like 10, 15, 20 years. And I was like, I don't want to be a property owner where like a lot of my equity is tied up in a home that at any given time a state could default on. Because I'm
mhm,
originally from Michigan and I saw what happened to Detroit. I have relatives that live there. And
right,
like overnight, their home values were like decreased by 90% when the city defaulted, right?
right.
So it's like, hey, your $200,000 house is now worth 18 grand, right? Like, oh, sweet.
Let's just
Uh,
walk away because the mortgage payment's not even like I might as well
Yes,
default.
and that's what happened. It was
Right,
literally just walking away from blocks. So, like, I got out
right.
because of that. But here's what I would say. You see the writing on the wall, and you kind of get out. And I sold the top of the market. Woot. At the time, it kind of came back and forth.
Thanks for the
Got
memo.
out, and then Indiana's seen a huge boom. I saw some numbers the other day about exodus from California, Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts, which is crazy.
They're moving
People
from high
leaving.
tax jurisdictions to low, like Florida is booming.
Yeah, Florida, the Carolinas,
Wyoming is
Georgia,
booming.
yeah,
Idaho,
Wyoming, Idaho, Tennessee,
yep.
like Texas, New Mexico, Arizona.
Texas,
So like
yeah,
you're seeing like people moving. And I think it is like tax based in some
yep.
regards, but I think like you said, like people don't need to be in cities anymore because people are telecommuting now. So like
Right.
you have these enormous tax burdens that are absolutely handcuffed by unions. And here's the thing, if you've ever run a department before, which I have, I was in sales management. I was the a vice president of sales for a startup. When you have a budget, you don't ever reduce your budget because then you don't get that money anymore, right?
Right.
Like if you say I don't need as much money, then
That doesn't
you,
happen.
you you don't ever do that, okay? And so you continue asking for more and more and more. It's never ever been done where you cut your budget. So these cities continue to ask for more, but the
Mhm,
exodus is out, and then now you have people commuting where there are open floors of these
mhm.
multi-million dollar uh
Yeah.
condos or I'm sorry, condo skyscrapers downtown
I don't
that have
understand.
no
They're
one in
building
them,
so many in Denver. I don't get it.
and no one's there, okay?
Who
And no
who's like
one's
who's gonna
there.
staff it? Like there's like 3 skyscrapers being built in Denver right now,
Yeah,
and I'm like looking at them like, who's gonna fill 60 floors? Like the ones that we have are probably
right,
vacant. Like
that's
I
right.
haven't been to an office in years.
Why would you pay? There's a guy at my golf club, I golf a lot, and he's like, "Yeah, my company was paying $280,000 a month in rent. We just
Right.
didn't renew our lease.
Ooh, easy
Everybody works
decision.
remote now." And I was like, "You
Cool.
just saved yourself $3 million a year." And I was like, "It's
And then
amazing."
the employees save commuting costs,
And they're happy as shit. They
and
just
they get
yeah,
more
so you're
time for their kids and
right, right. So it's not
dude.
only is like you're
Yeah.
seeing this shift in the way that life operates, which you're right, it's going from like urban to suburban or rural, but like also what are you have to think about what are the implications of that? And for places that are growing and booming like Denver, there aren't really any because like I was talking to a buddy of mine in crypto that's like moving to Denver just because he wants to be there. And I think
Right.
Denver is going to
Because
be
there's so many millennials.
yeah, and it's just like it's beautiful, it's sunny, there's shit to do. People are gonna go. So like I think that even if those buildings don't work out for like office space, they'll convert them into condos, it'll be fine, right? Like
Right, right.
whatever. But places like Chicago that are already underwater, that are already like have junk rating bonds or whatever, and like Boeing's leaving and all these other
Right.
places are like, fuck this, our tax status is out. What happens then? Now people are leaving, you don't have the tax base, so now you got to raise your property taxes further. How does that end?
Self-fulfilling, right.
That's right. And so they're not the only ones. There's a lot of places that are
Mm.
like that. So you have to think about how do I position myself for that crackdown? So for me, I'm stacking value as best I can because you know what happened to Detroit after it went down to like pennies on the dollar?
Recovered.
A lot of rich guys went in and bought city blocks for like eight
Yep.
bucks.
Yep.
That's what I'm
Wait,
waiting to
did
do. I
you just say
literally
stacking value?
stacking value.
Like
I'm
the
not
Value
saying
Stack podcast? What?
value stack. Hey, look at you.
Dude, no, I
What's
I
that?
I I
Yeah.
agree, man. I think there's like this opportunity
Yeah.
where, especially like, okay, you said Michigan. I think is really interesting because you're from Michigan and you
Yeah.
like to golf, and I feel that there's just like golf resurgence. I went to like a indoor golf driving range on Friday,
Nice.
and like the week before, some of my friends went and played Top Golf.
Oh
There's
yeah.
a there's like this. there's this like movement of like golf is
Yeah,
like
people getting outside,
Tiger Woods
boy.
is a billionaire now. Like
Dude,
I saw
he's
that
a
on Twitter today.
he's made $1.8 billion in his career.
Probably most of it off crypto, like NFT advertisement. Nah, probably not.
Maybe. No, no, no,
Uh,
no. Dude, if he
but
didn't give
yeah,
away 400 million to his ex-wife, he'd be a lot more.
that's true. He sounds like with Bill Gates, he's doing fine too.
Yeah, it'd
But
be all right.
the like seeing this, that's what I was talking about. Like seeing things that others aren't seeing. Like you saw to move out of the big city
Yeah.
before it kind of fell apart, and
Yeah, my home's up
I
50% since I moved in.
I think you've got a future where you've got a house near a golf course because I think that adds some value. And I just see
Absolutely.
this like work life balance where Bitcoin's $1 million and you're like out with your son, he's 10 years old or something, and y'all are like, hey, let's go out in the course and like hit some balls
I
and
love
like
it.
yeah.
I wanna see that future. No, like, I think that but, like, this is how I run my life. It's how I would encourage you and all your listeners to do the same thing, man. Like, just take a step back. Try to not be influenced by anything you read or hear. Even me, fuck me, dude. Go do your own research. Like, tell me where I'm wrong. I say that every time I stream. I've said it to you. I've said it to everybody else. This is what I believe. I am more than willing for somebody to be like, "You're stupid. Here's why," and I'll be like, "Cool, let's
Mhm.
talk about it." Because like, I'm more than happy to talk to people that are smarter than me. Tell me where I'm wrong so I can adjust my thought. And like
Right.
being open to new people with new ideas is what if I had done that in 2014, I'd be on my own island right now.
Hey, I mean, look, that's like you and I disagree on some things like about
Yeah.
crypto and particularly like where fits in with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the reason that I, appreciate your takes so much because they're not an echo chamber of mine. And
Right.
I do learn things when I talk with you. And I do
Likewise, man.
like round my perspective out and kind of realize like, all right, maybe I'm being too dogmatic here, or maybe I'm like being too emotional here. Like I knew I sold the bottom. Like it was like I even announced it in the chat.
You
Like
did. You did. You
because
truly did.
I knew I sold the bottom, right?
Yeah.
But
I
what
mean,
like what?
that
Sorry, go.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say that like my number one like operating principle in life, and we're like up against it here. So if you got one more thing,
Yeah.
I'd say that too. But like I want to get this in because I think it's important for everybody to remember. And you said because it triggered me to say this when you said about like being dogmatic. Like the number one thing that I value in life more than anything else is flexibility.
Hmm.
Okay.
Options.
There are
Yeah.
things that I believe very strongly, but nothing that I will pour cement over my feet on and say, I will never change my views on this. Nothing. Are there things that I feel pretty damn good about? Yeah. But
Uh,
like I value flexibility and the ability to take new information and process it without bias. That is the number one value. It's the reason why I've done well in investing. It's the reason why I've done well in life. And I would encourage everyone to try to take that view.
yeah. No, great takeaway. I think that mastering your mental state and your emotions probably like one of the most important things you can do in life,
Yeah,
period.
no doubt.
Like
No
whether it
doubt.
comes to hard work or like emotionally challenging things, like
You got it.
life dishes hard shit at you sometimes,
It
and
does.
like it's just, and you don't have, sometimes there's no option of avoiding it. The only option is going through it, right?
Yep.
And so the more that you can minimize your bias and reduce your, I think like you don't want to become numb either. Like, and
Right.
I think at some parts in my like getting, becoming an adult, I took that approach where I was like, I was feeling emotions such an intense way that I started to like try to numb myself to them,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the answer, right? Like,
It's
because
not. Yeah.
the emotional journey, that's like that is life, right? Like
Blessed
that's
to
the
be
ups and
human. It's
right,
also information, man. It's also information. Who are you to turn down new streams of information that you can now adjust your decisions for the future on, right? And like admit that's not fun information, but it's information
right.
nonetheless.
Well, speaking of new streams of information, there's a podcast that I know you're doing, so we'll wrap up here and do how can what was the name of the show? How
Yeah,
can they find you?
Crypto Parabellum podcast. It's Parabellum Pod on Twitter, but the easiest way is like my Twitter handle, man. That's like everything. I got all the links on there. It's just at JMPLUSEV, JM plus EV on Twitter. And that links to everything else. So plus expected value. That's how I run my life. I want to have my back against the wall and the trades to work in my favor. That's what I look for.
Well, I'm hoping that our listeners get some additional expected plus
That's right,
expected
baby.
value
Let's
out
go.
of this show.
This is a ton of fun, dude. I'll have you on mine soon. You know, I got a ton of stuff happening, moving and grooving. But I always appreciate your input as well, man. We got a good thing going here, and this was a ton of fun.
Yeah, man. It's one thing I want to we had it in a topic, but I didn't get to mention it. Was just like the level of preparation and quality that you put into your work. And I think we did talk about it in a way about like trading, right? Like going into trades with a plan in mind. That way, if it doesn't go the way you think it's going, that you can, you have a indicator that it's not going that way.
That's right.
And I think you do the same thing, like the level of work you put into the podcast and your Telegram group and all, and like, it's just apparent, man. And like, even like the quality of like your camera and microphone and stuff. I appreciate you showing up with like equally equipped equipment. That's because like some episodes like we have like crap audio quality. So anyway, like I just like appreciate your level of preparation and thoroughness and like the work you do, like both for yourself and like you share like a lot of knowledge for free. And so yeah, like I know that you don't have to do that stuff, and like it's impressive, man. So I hope you bring that work ethic and instill that into your children, and you know, and instill that into the 700 plus people in the Stacked Labs plus expected value, whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, right. Who the hell knows?
Teach everybody.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Like that means more to me than 99% of the stuff that I do. Hearing that from you and other people, because you're right. I do this for fun. I don't get paid. There's like literally, I've spent more money doing this shit than I have ever making anything. And it's because I like to help other people out. I've gotten a ton of messages from guys who are like, hey, you know, I live in, you know, Greece or whatever. You help me get my family out of a bad spot or like whatever it was. And it's like, that stuff warms my heart. And it's like what I miss living and working in a corporate world. So it's fun. I want to do it. I want to do it well. It's the best way to make it seem like you're not a LARP either. Like, look, I do this. I'm not asking for money. Like, I just want to talk to people and have a good time. And I know you do the same thing, dude. Like you do a great job educating. It's why I wanted you to be in and help us all learn, because you understand Bitcoin 10 times better than I ever will at a core value. And I sincerely appreciate that, man. So hell of a good show. This was fun.
Yeah, dude. I like, you know, think like, especially when there is no financial gain and you still put the level of effort in, like when you don't half-ass things, even when you can and get away with it, that's what shows you the type of person you are. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
what you do when you're not up against the wall, but you do it anyway, I think that's a good indicator. So.
Likewise, man. I know you do the same stuff. You do the same thing. You've got some banger shows. I send people to your website constantly. You got some great educational content too. So you crush it. Same way.